Buried under an old yew tree in the graveyard of Holy Trinity Church in the picturesque Peak District village of Ashford-in-the Water lies a lost grave and a mystery.
This investigation was sparked by our reminiscence activities with local care home residents, distant childhood memories leading to the rediscovery of a forgotten Victorian grave which reveals an astonishing tale of a seafaring family.
Involving adventure on the high seas, tragedy, shipwreck and undiscovered buried treasure. Remarkably, our story begins in a secluded spot about as far from the sea as you can get, but in a village with an appropriately watery name.
One care home resident who shared memories of the Peak District in past decades through our Peak in the Past project is Nellie Blundell.
Nellie was born and brought up in Ashford-in-the Water. She was born in 1922, the youngest of 10 children of Francis Thorpe, a railway worker, and his wife, Jane. Nellie had her own experience of naval service, joining the Wrens, the Women's Royal Navy Service, during the Second World War, where she was posted to Roseneath on the west coast of Scotland. The war led Nellie to meet her husband, Geoffrey, who was also serving in the forces. Nellie shared with us many fascinating recollections of growing up in Ashford-in-the Water, including fetching flour and animal feed in a wheelbarrow for the chickens and pigs her family kept from Flewitt's Corn Mill, attending village fetes back in the 1930s at Ashford Hall, home at the time of the Honourable Major George Evan Bailey, and lavish garden parties at Thornbridge Hall, thrown by the wealthy building magnate Charles Boot.
But one of Nellie's most intriguing childhood memories was stumbling upon a curious Victorian grave in the village churchyard of a young boy who was not local but came, like her future husband, from Liverpool.
The gravestone, she recalled, lay flat on the ground under a yew tree and was half buried under foliage. Something about this lonely, untended grave captured her interest, and whenever she passed the churchyard, she would sweep away the dead leaves and earth, which invariably covered it on each visit, obscuring it from view.
She had always wondered who the boy was. What was a child from Liverpool doing buried in a grave in Ashford-in-the Water some 70 miles away, and why had he died so young?
Nellie heard rumours he may have drowned in the River Wye. Back in the 19th and early 20th centuries, drownings in the river which runs through the village were not uncommon.
Nellie asked us if we could help her discover the truth about the boy by delving into the archives.
Our first task was to track down the grave, sweeping away a carpet of undergrowth at the precise spot where Nellie remembered the grave having laid, under the old yew tree, near the wall fronting the road. To our astonishment, a mysterious gravestone was gradually revealed, which had been completely hidden from sight. The inscription read, "In memory of Charles McAllister, son of Neil and Margaret Shannon of Liverpool, who died at Ashford, October the 3rd, 1853, aged 4 years.
So who was this young boy exactly? How did he die, and why was he buried here in Ashford-in-the-Water?
We found details of the family on the 1851 census. The Shannons were then resident at 75 Upper Cannon Street, Liverpool, with Charles' father Neil Shannon listed as a master mariner, born on the Isle of Arran off the Scottish west coast. We discovered that Neil Shannon captained the Royal Mail steamship America, part of the Cunard Line, during the early 1850s, where he made frequent trips across the Atlantic to the USA and back.
It appears that young Charles was named after his grandfather, Charles McAllister Shannon Sr., who died in New South Wales, Australia in September 1846.
Charles' grandfather was born in Scotland and served as a captain in the Argyllshire militia before emigrating to Australia in 1838, where he became superintendent of the Mulville Station on the Clarence River in New South Wales, an indication of the seafaring spirit of the Shannon family and their inclination to roam.
The discovery that the little boy's father was a master mariner lent extra intrigue to the rumours Nellie had heard that Charles may have drowned.
Having established the name of the child and date he died, we tracked down a copy of Charles' death certificate, looking for confirmation of the cause of death. The death certificate, however, revealed how he died in Ashford-in-the-Water of scarlet fever.
So there was no shocking tale of drowning in Charles' case, but the mystery remains why this young boy from Liverpool ended up buried here.
No evidence could be found that the family had any particular association with the village. Perhaps the parents simply brought their stricken son to the village, hoping that the fresh country air might cure him of his affliction.
There is, however, a cruel twist to this tale which may account for the rumours Nellie had heard growing up that Charles might have drowned. Although Charles didn't drown, his younger brother Neil Shannon Jr did, and in dramatic circumstances.
Only decades later and thousands of miles away. Like his father before him, Neil, born in 1851, became a ship's captain. He skippered the SS Catathon, a steamliner which was shipwrecked in August 1895 after striking a reef in a storm near Seal Rocks off the coast of New South Wales, Australia, shortly after setting off on a voyage from Sydney to Hong Kong. 55 people lost their lives in the disaster, including Captain Shannon, who was swept off the deck by a huge wave as he supervised the launch of lifeboats. The sinking of the Catathon was widely reported at the time in the British press. It's quite conceivable that the residents of Ashford-in-the-Water heard about the sad fate of the brother of the young lad buried in the churchyard decades earlier, and that over time the tales of the brothers were confused in village folklore. Notably, the Catathon was carrying a valuable cargo of 9,000 gold sovereign coins when it sunk, prompting a large-scale salvage operation. Some 8,000 coins were said to have been recovered, but the missing gold was never found. The wreck of the Catathon remains a popular site for divers to explore.
Although both Shannon brothers ended up in somewhat unusual concealed graves, their lives and final resting places couldn't be further apart.
Charles, buried under a yew tree in a pretty peatland churchyard shortly before his 4th birthday, and Neil Jr. lost at sea on the other side of the world after a life full of maritime adventure. But despite his life being cut tragically short, young Charles still plays an important part in his family's narrative. His newly rediscovered grave serves as an unlikely gateway to the remarkable story of the seafaring Shannons. A tale of two brothers who for long have lain hidden, their deaths separated by decades and oceans, now united through a voyage of discovery across time and space. If you get the opportunity to visit the church here at Ashford-in-the-Water, reaching over the wall and brushing away the foliage under the yew tree allows the mind to sweep across seas and back in time.